Okay, here's another trade video. This one is between Detroit and Philadelphia. Reason I did this one, not obviously going to talk about every single trade. If it's not really that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, I'm not going to talk about it. But anyway, Detroit, Philadelphia. This one is actually a fairly big trade, and I'll tell you why. Detroit, it's a pick package, and we'll get into that in a second. That goes towards Detroit. Philadelphia gets Petr Mrazek from Detroit. Petr Mrazek, goaltender, 26. He's been kind of platooning with Jimmy Howard there in Detroit, and neither one of them has played in recent years dominantly enough to take control of the #1 job. So in Detroit, they've kind of been riding the hot hand there a little bit between Howard and Mrazek over the last probably 3 or 4 years now. But Detroit finally moves out Mrazek. He's actually scheduled to be a restricted free agent at the end of this season. But Detroit retains 50% of his salary in this deal for the remainder of this contract anyway. Mrazek this season has played 22 games, has been basically the backup this year. In years past, he was kind of the starter, even though it tends to be a 50-30 split between these two goalies. Last year, Mrazek was getting the bulk of the time, and I think the year before that. This year, it's been Howard that's been outplaying Mrazek. But this year, Mrazek, 22 games played. He's 8-7-3, 2.89 goals against, 910 save percentage. Certainly nothing to write home about as far as the numbers are concerned, but not too bad nonetheless. And the reason the Flyers went out and did this deal was the fact that obviously Philadelphia has Elliott and Neuwirth as their starting and backup goalies. But right now, both of them are hurt. And the Flyers are in the dogfight for a playoff spot. So it kind of, when both those guys got hurt, it kind of forced Ron Hextall's hand a little bit. Because the goaltenders that Philadelphia has behind Elliott and Neuwirth are certainly nothing that that he felt comfortable with going with in a playoff run. So he wanted to get an NHL proven goalie. He goes out and gets Mrazek, so they essentially have 3 NHL goalies on their roster at this point. And another caveat to this, even though Mrazek is a restricted free agent at the end of this season, Elliott and Neuwirth are both signed to contracts through next season. So those two guys aren't going anywhere unless they trade one of them. And further down the depth chart, you've got Hart and Sandstrom, which Philadelphia, they're 2 goaltending prospects. And if you remember Carter Hart, he starred in the World Junior Championships for Team Canada. So they're very high on him, and they're also high on Sandstrom, a Swedish goaltender. And both are considered high-end prospects for Philadelphia. So the net is rather full there in Philadelphia at the moment. But with the injuries to Elliott and Neuwirth, no timetable for either one to return, Hextall basically had to do something to put an NHL quality goalie in net for them. Now, the package of picks that Detroit gets is all purely conditional. It's officially listed as a 2018 conditional 4th round pick and a 2019 conditional 3rd round pick. Now here are the conditions. It starts out as a 4th round pick. That is the minimum that Detroit gets in this deal, is this 4th round pick. It becomes a 3rd round pick if Philadelphia makes the playoffs and Mrazek plays at least 5 games. It actually elevates to a 2nd round pick if Philadelphia reaches the conference final and Mrazek wins at least 6 playoff games. So obviously he would have to be a factor in those. He has to win 6 playoff games, not just play in them, in order to elevate that to a 2nd round pick. The other pick that goes to Detroit is a conditional third-round pick in 2019, and Detroit only gets that if Philadelphia decides to re-sign Mrazek to a contract in the summertime. So my guess is they'll pick 2 of the 3 between Mrazek, Elliott, and Neuwirth, and they will sign. Well, these 2 are already signed. They may sign Mrazek and trade one of the other ones away, which is kind of what I would do. I would probably go with Mrazek and Elliott and let Neuwirth go ahead and try to see what you can get for him in trade. But if they go ahead and sign him, Detroit gets a third-round pick. So that's pretty much the details on that. Let me know what you thought about this trade in the comments. And, of course, if you liked the video, click like. If you really liked it, click subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.